And welcome to the broadcast on this July 29th, 2025. July 29th, 2025. So, a lot going on in the country, no doubt about it. Shootings, seems like there's shootings going on in a lot of places that aren't being reported. You want to know more about what we think about yesterday's shooting in New York and some of these other things, you might want to watch my broadcast from earlier today, which will air right after this broadcast, my radio show / TV show. But I had Annie Cyrus on to talk about that today as well. I think there's more going on than we're being told about. That's what I'll say about that. My guest tonight, my guest too, will include David Pine. He's back. How close are we to World War III? Here's a headline from Zero Hedge. Plan on it. Martin Armstrong sees a 100% chance of nuclear war. Ed Dowd. I was going to bring up Martin Armstrong to Ed Dowd the other night, but before I could, he brought him up. He's quoting him favorably. So I want to ask David Pine about this tonight. And then let's talk to David Pine about this deadline by President Trump going down from like 50 days to 10 days, something like that. I did my commentary tonight in the Worldview report on this. I think it's dangerous. I want to see what David Pine thinks. And what kind of deal did we just cut with the European Union? Seems like it was a really good deal for America. Maybe not so much for them, the EU, European Union, I should say. Was that really part of a bigger, bolder plan, which is, hey, will America provide weapons to NATO, who can give them to Ukraine, keep this war going? Because I think the Europeans definitely want war. We'll give you weapons, NATO. NATO gives them to Ukraine. But you're going to come over here and give us these, the deal we want on the tariffs, which seemed like a really good deal for us, not so much for the EU. I want to ask David if that is all part of the deal. Most people are not connecting those. Okay, let's talk about that. And then I'm going to be joined by Joe Allen. Dark Eon is his book. What does he make of the AI data centers? Are they going to cause your electricity bill to go sky high? Are they putting the grid at risk? Are they moving too fast, putting too much money in, and they're not really even getting a return? Maybe they're years away from a return. Are we risking an awful lot? Are the risks higher, much higher than the benefit? How does he think AI will impact society? All the way down to our children. Let's ask him about a digital central bank dollar, central bank digital currency, Bitcoin, programmable, tracking us. Let's ask him about Palantir, their involvement with Donald Trump. What does he think about their involvement, as many reports have, with the intelligence community? What does that mean for us? Tracking, social credit scores, and so much more. It's been a while since we've talked to Joe Allen. Well, we got a lot to talk with him about. What about Peter Thiel? He seems to like to talk a lot about the Antichrist, Armageddon. Why all this kind of talk by Peter Thiel? What does Joe Allen make of that? Lots to talk about tonight, okay? Tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. Get all your friends over here. Get all your friends over here, okay? And then be sure to go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. One of our sponsors, of course, is Gatatana. It is a phytoplankton, and I take it every day in a drink, and I give half a scoop to Dolly. And you guys all know that it was developed because Tom Harper, he was developing it for his fish, his shellfish. Got a terminal diagnosis, started eating the paste of the phytoplankton by the handful. And went in for biopsies, 11 biopsies. They all came back benign. His doctors were like, what is going on here? Lived another 10 years, retired to Hawaii, we're told. Well, from that experience with Tom Harper, David Hunter starts Global Plankton Alliance. And there are a lot of benefits to phytoplankton. goes down deep to the cellular level, feeding your mitochondria, helping you to have a good, healthy, powerful immune system. So your immune system can fight off all the bad things. So I take this every day. I give half a scoop to Dolly. You need to get it. It's, you want to put up the URL? It's MelissaHouseGPA.com. Melissa, Howse, MelissaHouseGPA.com. I haven't taken it on air lately. I've been taking it twice a day, to be honest with you. You don't have to. You can take it once a day, but I'm really trying to boost my immune system. I'm really trying to get my voice. I've just been struggling with my voice for months. I'm trying to get over whatever this is. And so I'm taking this twice a day. I've been doing my Bella Grace twice a day, too. And I'm swishing with my Numi a lot. That detoxes the cells, of course. But back to Gatatana. Let's finish that up. So there you go. Get a hold of that. All right. Now let's go to Bella Grace. Yes, I take Bella Grace every day. The powerful elixir loaded with antioxidants, loaded with high-end collagen with the peptides cut short. So the studies show your body actually digests 95%, where most of you are passing it 95% down the toilet. Wasting your money. It's not doing anything. This 80 clinical trials shows your body's absorbing 95%. And it's got cat's claw, which is an anti-inflammatory. Okay? Take this every day. I'll take one right now, in fact. You guys can just watch me. I turn into an Incredible Hulk. Gatatana, Bella Grace, all at one shot, too. Woohoo! I'm going to go for hours tonight, Logan. You can get that at melissahousebg.com. Of course, they also have their sleep gummies, the skincare that Melissa loves, and they have the Bella Trim, all natural health benefit Bella Trim. Okay. Now, the other thing I do, 3 things a day I do for sure. Numi, loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. There are toxins everywhere. Try to avoid them, but they're everywhere. And so go to swishforlife.com. Swishforlife.com. You can swish with this, particularly if you feel like something's coming down a lot in one day. Swish for about 3 minutes, and it's in your bloodstream, they say, within 90 seconds. And then you can spit it out or swallow. I've been swishing several times a day again, trying to get really, really rid of this crud that just barely hangs on. I don't know what that's all about. Who knows? Who knows what they're doing to us, folks? But I've been swishing quite a bit with this. And some studies show this may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson. Okay? There you go. And then, of course, why not also go ahead and become your own urgent care. Go to worldviewhealthcare.com, get your meds on hand, your antibiotics, other critical meds. God forbid we go to World War III. God forbid they go after the power grid. Get in a war with China, most of our pharmaceuticals stop. I'd be stocking up. Most of us, we don't need another flat screen TV. Most of us, we really don't need a lot as far as extra luxury things or items. There's a lot of things that are, I'd like to have. And then there are the I have to have, right? Do you need it or do you want it? There's a lot of things we want, but do we really need it? These are things that you need because the grid goes down, power goes down, we go to war, China stops sending over their pharmaceuticals we're buying from them. You're going to be in a world of hurt. So I would get your meds and get them ready to go on hand, worldviewhealthcare.com. And then finally, I would go and I'd get me a satellite phone. I have a satellite phone, and my minutes roll over every month. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com. Okay? Worldviewtalk.com. We have a lower third for that. That's just a little hint. Look at that. So they have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. The satellite phone, I have it. Minutes roll over, they collect up. You get a free satellite phone, and you sign up for one of their very reasonable plans. They have Starlink. Starlink, that's free when you sign up for one of their very reasonable plans. And it's portable. Portable Starlink. For those of you who have RVs or go camping or have a cabin, but you don't want to put in full internet over there and pay that every month, take the portable Starlink with you. All of it's at worldviewtalk.com, or you can call 1-866-738-3224, 1-866-738-3224. Okay? There you go. Great ways to support us. Keep this free cutting-edge broadcast going. Joining me now is Joe Allen. He's an expert on transhumanism, technocracy, and so many other very important topics. Do you have his book? You have his book? Are you following him on X? Here he is on X right here. His book is Dark Eon, and here he is on X. Be sure to follow him, all right, on X. At Joe, B-O-T-X-Y-Z. At Joe, B-O-T-X-Y-Z. He joins us now. Joe, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Brandon, very good to be here. It's been too long.
It has been. Looking forward to having you back. I just figured out you live in my home state of Tennessee. I don't know how I missed out on this, but we're fellow Tennesseans.
Been here for a while.
I did not know that. That's my fault. We're going to get you over to the studio, I think, hopefully soon. We've been talking about that off the air. Do some long format interviews. All right, let's talk about technocracy, transhumanism, the big AI thing that came out last week, the AI plan. We've been doing a lot of shows on that. What did you see in there that caused concern, if anything, from the Trump White House?
Basically, it's an open door. There is some safeguards that are being proposed, but by and large, if you've gone over it with the audience, I don't want to necessarily bore them with the nuts and bolts details, at least no more than is necessary. But it opens with this call for acceleration and innovation. The whole idea really is that the U.S. has to remain at the forefront of AI design and deployment, and the race towards artificial general and then superintelligence, although it's not mentioned in the plan, is really the goal of these frontier companies, Google, XAI, Anthropic, OpenAI, so on and so forth. So what this plan is doing really is just laying out a lot of policy proposal that would enable the creation of more and more powerful AI design. And also, of course, there's some talk of the safety at the end, but in general, it's not something that will happen upstream of development and deployment. For the most part, it's setting up the U.S. to look downstream what is happening or what has happened, and then begin to regulate around that. So, if you want my opinion on it, I think that this is a very, very poor choice, and I think that the more we try to restrain what we already suspect will be the worst outcomes of artificial intelligence, from the surveillance aspect to the tech dependency to the possibility of more and more decision making being done by algorithmic systems rather than human beings. All of those things could be curtailed with wise regulation, I believe, but that's going to be up to the states. If there is any one good thing that I can highlight, and there's actually a few, but I think that even if the language of the 10-year AI moratorium on states being able to regulate, that language is still present. I think it's on page 3. You see the above that language, the declaration that the federal government should not restrict states passing prudent laws, and as long as they're not unduly restrictive. And in a way, that's a concession. And then you see below, though, the Office of Management and Budget and the FCC invoked as possible mechanisms to punish states by withholding funding that pass any kind of laws that get in the way of the national AI agenda.
So right now, though, it isn't law that states are prohibited for 10 years to do anything. States can still act right now.
No, and a lot of people rallied together, to kill that. And it shows that with enough will, you really can, steer policy more in your direction than it was before. But the imperative to do so is obviously still there. Guys like David Sachs, guys like Mark Andreessen, maybe guys like Peter Thiel, he hasn't really spoken about it, but the people on the kind of accelerationist end of all of this are still wanting to ensure that certain states don't get in the way of any of their plans for rolling out extremely powerful AI systems. They oftentimes, you hear it a lot of times, well, you can't have California regulating the entire country. And I can imagine scenarios in which California would pass extremely crazy laws that would force AI companies to make all of their AI models, for instance, conform to certain politically correct speech codes. But if you look at the 18 laws that are on the books right now in California, they're around data transparency. Where did you get your data? They're around watermarking generated content, meaning that you can't just have a model that creates deep fakes. They're about regulating deepfakes and criminalizing deepfakes. They're about not being able to create any kind of child pornography or anything like that with an AI system, not using AI systems to deceive other people. These are not unreasonable laws. So I think that for the most part, all the talk about California ruining the AI industry, if the laws that they've passed so far are any indication, basically California is just one of the few states to actually try to keep this reined in. Texas is another one.
You're quoted in an MSNBC article talking about an interview that you were doing, I think, on Steve Bannon's show.
Yeah.
It says the next day, Allen embodied the right-wing critique of Trump's AI plan when he said, quote, excuse me, my hope is that the Trump administration does not close off the borders of the United States only to open the gates of hell within and unleash horrible AI systems upon the populace, end quote. Give me your worst case scenario. What is your biggest concerns right now watching Palantir? I guess they want to create a file on every American. They're deep inside. Peter Thiel, all these guys, J.D. Vance's guys, I think, helped bring him to where he's at today. All these guys are deep inside now, the Trump administration. What is your worst fears about what we could look back and say that President Trump maybe was misled about and led down the primrose path here? And we're going, oh, I wish President Trump had not let these guys in the door. What's the worst case scenario of what they could accomplish?
Well, I guess the worst case scenario would be one of the true doomer tropes, right? The AI becomes superhuman, either sentient or not sentient, but certainly malevolent, and then either kills everybody by shutting or sending nuclear weapons, or creating nanobots to kill us all and turning everything into gray goo. That would be the worst case scenario. Although, on the other hand, there'd be a lot less to worry about then. Wouldn't really have to keep the anxiety so high. I think the most immediate concerns, though, and I don't mean to disparage the doomer narrative. I do think that it's important to pay attention to their reasoning on this, how it would be that you would create a system that was superhuman that could do horrific damage, whether it's conscious or not, just simply a system that was able to outsmart its creators. Some narrow systems have been able to do that on very small scale and narrow tasks. But now I'm not really worried about Terminator scenarios so much. I think as long as I'm invoking film, what I oftentimes try to instill in people's minds, the real fear should be somewhere between the Matrix and Idiocracy, meaning that people will live inside illusory digital bubbles, not unlike we do right now, but that are almost entirely AI generated or AI mediated. And that will, in turn, create a much dumber populace. And I know many of your listeners would probably say, well, how could you possibly do that? It could get worse, believe me. And the end result would basically be a very compliant, easily controlled population of people who are kind of suckling on the mechanical teat and waiting for the end to come. That would be the worst. So, and it doesn't have to be that cartoonish. You just need some approximation of that. The other big issue, you brought up Palantir. Palantir, has been around for 22 years, and I'm very, very glad that more attention is being paid to what they do. But they're one of dozens of companies that do exactly that. And so the whole thing about Thiel taking over the White House, Thiel's been with Trump for a decade plus. So that's nothing new. I can understand people's shock if they've only just learned this, but Thiel has been right there with Trump from the beginning of his political career. And Palantir has been there for 22 years. And it's good that people understand what they're doing and the kind of motivations and agendas that go behind that. Their primary role is data processing and gathering for the purpose of getting a clearer picture of what surveillance information is showing. So I guess you would say, if you wanted to look at like the positive side of that, if you look at what Palantir does in terms of monitoring global economic and political and military activity to show basically like where a clear sea lane would be, or to give some indication of an incoming attack for an army at war. They've donated their, I don't know if it's still donation, maybe they're being paid now, but their technology is being used in Ukraine, it's being used in Israel. And their technology is used for target acquisition. So you're sifting through massive amounts of data, whether it be online communication, surveillance, satellite surveillance, all of that. And you're looking for valid targets for war. If you're for war, I guess maybe you should be for Palantir because they're going to help people do it better. For me, on the other hand, I think that by and large, these wars are not just wars. And I also think that the real concern in regard to surveillance and in regard to looking for valid targets in combat, the big concern would be that your government turns that around and uses it on you. These sorts of algorithms are used regularly by the FBI. I don't know about Palantir specifically. Again, there are so many different companies, so many different algorithms of these sort. But, you have police departments, state bureaus of investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, CIA, all that, DHS, all of them using these sorts of things on the American populace now. And it can either be used unjustly in the sense that you use this to identify valid dissent and suppress it, or the algorithm glitches out and you end up in a situation kind of like the movie Brazil, where you've been flagged falsely for terrorist or even just criminal activities, and then the hammer comes down on you anyway. So I think that, again, just to go right back through, the robots kill everybody, big problem if it were to happen, not top of my priority list. Dumbing people down and making them tech dependent and using algorithms to delude them, massive problem, already is a massive problem, will only get worse. The more we do to get rid of that threat, the better off we'll be. And then, of course, surveillance. And AI does, or algorithms in general, but AI, if you want to call it that, AI does enable a lot more surveillance data to be usable than just the standard techniques that have been used for the past few decades.
Mm-hmm. Well, Palantir, I read different articles. Some say one thing, some say another. How involved was Palantir, do you think, in helping find Osama bin Laden? Because I watched a documentary not too long ago, I think it was on Netflix, Hunting bin Laden, and they had a lot of people that were apparently on that bin Laden team. They were being interviewed using their face. They weren't scrambled or anything, talking about how many hours they spent trying to find bin Laden. And I guess they found a courier, somebody's nickname was used by bin Laden, I think his son on a video. And his son, I think, was appearing off camera. Young child. And by picking up that guy's nickname, they kind of figured out that he was a courier, and they started listening for his voice. And it was like picking a needle out of a haystack until finally one day they were able to somehow identify his voice on the phone. and then they tracked him. Now, I've read articles that Palantir was involved in some of this tracking of Osama bin Laden. What have you read? What do you think is true? And doesn't it show us that Palantir's been involved with the intelligence arena for some time? Is that true? And the intelligence arena generally have great tools, but they need real brilliant, bright people. Most of those people, I think, stay in the business world to make money. So now you're combining the intelligence world with the best and the brightest people who maybe were involved in even helping the intelligence community find bin Laden, if that's the case. That tells you, again, where you could be going with a massive global surveillance state that would just blow your mind how quick they could find you. I asked one of my friends once who worked for the National Reconnaissance Office, putting up satellites and grabbing data to give to the 17, 18 different intelligence arenas. If I were in the woods and say the Boundary Waters, and I was talking, could you guys hear me? And his response was, I can neither confirm nor deny. So I don't know if they could actually say, well, we don't know where he's at, but we know a general area. Zoom our satellites in and start listening. Is he talking? So he doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't have anything tracking him. But if he talks, and we know he's in this 10-mile radius, we're scanning this 10, 20, 30-mile radius, and as soon as we hear his voice, we'll know it's him. I don't know what they've got, but I think we would be blown away by some of the technology they have. What do you know about Palantir? Were they involved? How long have they been involved with our intelligence community? Were they involved in hunting down bin Laden or not?
I don't know specifically about bin Laden. You just told me more about that relationship than I'd ever heard before. So I don't know. I do find it, I'm not going to go out on a conspiratorial limb on this, but I do find it very odd that they disposed of the body immediately and that the SEAL team that was involved were largely killed afterwards. But I don't, anyway, I'll leave it there.
And you would be referring to Extortion 17, of which my friend Billy Vaughn's son, Aaron, was on board. SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, and I'm just simply remarking that these are strange coincidences and saying nothing more. But Palantir, as an apparatus used by the intelligence agency and in many ways created by intelligence agencies, yes, from the inception, just after 9/11, 2003. And yes, I mean, their whole purpose, the whole foundation of Palantir is about beefing up the ability to use surveillance data and find a signal in all of that noise that's used for border patrol. It's used for crime. All these things that in general, I think people want to see succeed, right? You want the border, at least on our side of the aisle, you want the border to be closed off and protected. You want criminals to be brought to justice. If you're at war, you want to win them. You want to know what your enemies are doing. You want to know how to find the valid targets and the most valuable targets. All of those things. Again, the problem, there's a few different problems there. One, who is steering that machine? Even if you feel like the person who's steering that machine or the people who are steering that machine are on your side or they are good guys, that can change very, very quickly. Palantir, for instance, was involved in the rollout of the vaccine. Again, data gathering, data analysis. I'm pretty sure they were trying to identify areas and demographics that were and were not taking the vaccine and keeping track of what vaccines have been rolled out. I could be a little off on those details, but certainly had deep involvement. And I think that many people woke up. I think there was a massive shift in consciousness, both for the worst and for the better, from 2020 going forward, because you could see how quickly an apparatus that is in many ways being directed by or is directing the military industrial complex, because that is deeply involved in the creation of the vaccine, in the pandemic response, in the surveillance methods used, all these sorts of things, in the coercion, all these sorts of things. So you can see how quickly that whole system can shift rapidly, can take half or more of the population with them, meaning that you have half or more of the population that are going to go along and justify what's happening. And it's turned squarely, it just aimed right at you. This is a massive problem. And so the creation of any system like that is going to be potentially you are creating your own destruction. You are basically feeding into your own ruin because it could be turned on you. The second thing, though, is should you really have that much power? And I don't mean just Palantir. I mean, basically, these technological systems, if they function properly, should you have that much power at all? Should humanity be wielding the power to change the weather? Should humanity be wielding the power to change the human genome or any genomes of any organism on the planet? Should humanity be wielding the power to wipe an entire city off the map, as happened at the end of World War II and could easily happen again today? I think in general, even if it's inevitable that such powers accumulate, the wisest move would be to use it only if absolutely necessary. That certainly doesn't seem to be the plan going forward. And the third is, what if it doesn't work right? And that happens all the time. You saw it during the whole 2020 Great Germ Panic scenario, all sparked basically by a flawed model created by Neil Ferguson in the London University. It's been so long now, Brandon. How you help me out here? What is Imperial College London? And there was a flawed model which showed mass death, like 2 million deaths within 6 months in America, and 500,000 deaths in UK. And that model was presented to Boris Johnson and then to the Trump administration. And that model is what really, it was the catalyst in the UK and a catalyst in the US for mass panic. And it was completely flawed. And that guy gets caught breaking the lockdown to see his mistress in some sort of bizarre academic polycule. So it just shows that, one, you don't want it turned against you. Two, you probably don't want a system that powerful built anyway, even if that's, that horse is already out of the barn. But three, I think that people really underestimate how bad it would be if, for instance, you put the education of children largely in the hands of algorithms, or if you insist that medical doctors defer to algorithmic systems or utilize robotic algorithmic systems over and above their own abilities, so on and so forth. Well, what happens if the machine is flawed? What happens if those flaws are not exposed before tremendous damage is done? So I know that's a departure from Palantir, but Palantir has been involved in all of this from the beginning, and I don't see them going away.
What about central bank digital currencies? President Trump has signed an executive order against those, but as I'm studying this and talking to some other folks, I have to wonder, what if the tech bros, they got better technology. The feds probably are way behind or not getting it, as good as it should be. And I would think if they had it, they would have launched it. So the tech bros will come along and make it what it should be for a stable coin. Yeah, exactly. Bitcoin. They've already done it. Stable coin, Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it. And to get around the whole idea of a central bank digital currency, it won't be the central bank. It'll be the tech bros. Just like the Federal Reserve is a collection of banks given a federal charter. They're not the federal government. You do the same thing. You give the tech bros a federal charter, and they develop this, and it's handed off to some third agency, be it the Federal Reserve or newly created one, to handle it. Thereby, it's not really a central bank digital currency. It's not a, something run by them. It's created by the tech bros, run by them, managed as the front guys by somebody else. Is that what we're seeing here? Is that why people say, when they say, don't have to worry about a central bank digital currency, because that President Trump signed executive order stopping it. Is there going to be an in run around here where people are like, whoa, wait a minute, I didn't think they were going to do that?
I think that's already happening. Yeah, the digitization of currency has been with us now for decades. So it's now the norm. Most people don't use cash. And that's just the reality of it. Most people use traceable digital transactions. So all the fears of central bank digital currency are quite valid, because it would lock in a system, especially when you get into ideas like programmable digital currency or monitored digital currency on some sort of ledger, so that every transaction is not only monitored but can be limited in real time. And these sorts of things are already with us too, right? You have bank policies that, for instance, will flag large withdrawals or large transactions. So they bleed into each other. What we've already made normal with digital currency is, I think you can see it more clearly in the concept of a central bank digital currency that would be on some sort of blockchain, that would be just kind of endlessly traceable and highly controllable. But we're already there. I think that a big focus should be on rolling that back as much as possible.
So the executive order doesn't help you sleep at
Yes.
night.
None of these, nothing happening in the White House for the most part helps me sleep at night. Nothing happening in Washington, D.C. gives me a lot of comfort. So, no. But, one of the technologies that is going to be enormous, I think, in the future is Bitcoin. And not just like, all the different, Ethereum and other stable coins, or the so-called, I can't say it on air, but the phony coins, we'll call them. The meme coins, the ego boosting coins, all that's happening, right? But Bitcoin will be probably the important one going forward.
Is the CIA behind that Bitcoin?
I don't know if the CIA is behind it, but they certainly use it. I've heard all of those accusations. People say the CIA does all sorts of things without a whole lot of evidence, and people say the CIA couldn't possibly be involved without a whole lot of evidence. I don't know, but I do know that Bitcoin, by its very nature, is not going to be controlled by the CIA. They may have a massive stake in it. They might use it a lot, which they do for a lot of black budget activities and black operations. But the whole notion that Bitcoin is just this thing that was created by the CIA, I think is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the technology works. And I only have a limited grasp of how the decentralized blockchain-based currency works. I'm not some sort of expert on it, but I do know that the consensus of the majority of the users is a major force in how Bitcoin goes forward. And I don't think that that's something that the CIA has agents all over and is steering. One way or the other, I think Bitcoin is something that I don't know that it's going to replace all currency or anything like that, but I do think that Bitcoin, because of its versatility, you can literally send messages by way of Bitcoin, right? You can publish material on Bitcoin, and that material is by and large unalterable. So that my book, for instance, is published on Bitcoin through Canonic XYZ. And what that means is, if no matter how many digital copies are out there that could potentially in some future world with ultra powerful AI could be altered, could be, Orwelled. That's very, very difficult with a decentralized ledger. Not impossible, but very, very difficult. And so it gives a sort of security, a sort of permanence, something like etching into stone that normal digital communications may not be reliable for in the future. So beyond just its currency element, Bitcoin is, I think, going to be important as just simply a kind of medium. And we'll see how that goes. It could be something very, very different. But
we are going to see
that I'm seeing.
We are going to see some kind of central bank digital currency, regardless of what they call it.
Maybe, maybe not. Again, the central bank digital currency thing, it's a great one that I'm so glad that people have exposed the various plans to do so. And I think in some cases in Europe, actually happening. But again, the real problem that we already face right now is the ubiquity of digital transaction. And even if the central bank digital currency had begun rolling out a year ago or 2 years ago, it's not that it would just replace all currency. It would just be another form of currency, right? You would still have digital dollars floating around everywhere. You would still have cash. You would still have coins. You would still have gold. You'd have all the other things, but you would have, in addition to that, a central bank digital currency. Not to say it couldn't become ubiquitous, just to say that that wouldn't be the first thing that would happen. And the problem, again, is already with us. It's the digitization of our transactions, not just because they're traceable, and so it opens you up to scrutiny and also a kind of analysis of your habits, so on and so forth, your movements, all of these sorts of things. But also it can just be shut down just like that. So yeah, we've already got that. Central bank digital currencies simply are another step in that direction. The executive order against them, great, fine, that's good. I'm glad that that happened. But there's a lot of other things going on, I guess is what I'm saying, that I think are probably going to be more important in the future, Bitcoin being one of them.
Okay, a couple more questions for you. We got XAI here in Memphis. Elon's deal. He's supposedly running a bunch of methane generators. My power's flickered off and on multiple times since he came to town. I don't know if that's because of him. Local city council member told me last year he was told that's why they were trying to bring that thing up online. I don't know. But now we have Google announcing a $10 billion data center right over the river from Memphis in Arkansas. How concerned are you for our nation's power grid and power consumption and power rates? Is the average person going to be able to afford their power bill? Is this going to be passed on to the consumers? Or we have the governor of Florida talking about doing away with property taxes. Are these data centers going to be taxed so much that counties can do away with property taxes? Is this going to be a blessing or a curse for the average person living where these data centers are?
For the average person, I imagine this is not going to, there's going to be very, very few upsides. For the people building them, for the people who own them, for the people who utilize them for data processing and the creation of AI, obviously it's going to have tremendous benefits, but I think at the expense of other people. Already there are reports around the country of spiked electric bills, right? Electric bills as much as doubling, and most likely due to the strain on the system because of the data centers. You have the pollution element you just spoke about with the methane generators. That is an enormous problem for anyone who lives downwind of that, and also downstream of these things. So yeah, the pollution is going to be enormous. Maybe they'll get better techniques so that the amount of pollution isn't necessary. The strain on water. I mean, you need a ton of water, fresh water, to cool the servers as they're doing the AI training. And so that is another element. The electricity and water, two of the vital resources for a modern life, right? And the data centers are sucking up, like for instance, in Ireland, I think that it is as much as 20, maybe more than 20% of the electricity on the tiny little island of Ireland is used to power data centers and servers. And there are states, I think it's Oregon, it's some 20% of the water, something like that, is used to cool data centers. So, you know, I don't have a clear granulated picture of this across the country, but taking those extremes and imagining a future 5-10 years ahead, it's going to be an enormous crisis. If you look back at the AI action plan, you know, there's 3 pillars. The second pillar is dedicated solely to building out AI infrastructure.
That's right.
That means everything from building out, you know, granting federal lands to build out data centers. It means allocating resources such as electricity and water and capital to create and run these systems. And then also the, you know, manufacturing of microchips and reshoring microchips. All of these sorts of things. Yes, if you're looking towards a future, as I'm fond of saying, if you assume that the future is one of, you know, tech titans summoning digital demons, and that's what's going to run the world of the future, then yes, these are all great things because it's going to put us ahead in this race to summon the biggest demon. On the other hand, if you have other values in mind, if you have other interests, then what you see is this really grotesque misallocation of resources.
So are we headed for a tech bubble, like a .com bubble? Are we headed for an AI bubble?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to happen. But
what does that look like? What's that look like?
But I don't, you know, it's anyone's guess. I mean, I was actually really stunned, for instance, at the legal case against Anthropic. I mean, it's possible that they'll go out of business, right? This is one of the 4 leading AI labs, and they may go out of business.
This is over there loading up
violations.
New York Times articles and stuff, loading them up.
Yeah, and basically, and they paid for them, and that's why. I mean, all these other companies did the same thing, but Anthropic paid for them and made it more public what they did. And so, and David Sachs is not a fan of them, and nor are the accelerationists near Trump. So, a confluence of different factors mean that they are in serious trouble. Depending on the ruling. So, but this is all to say that it's very hard to anticipate who's going to be the next one to the best model and who's just going to get knocked out of the game. But I think that without a doubt, I mean, if you look at the amount of profit that's generated from AI up to this point, they're at losses, right? You don't have a profitable business yet. It's all staked. All of this investment is staked on the future usage, right? The future profits. And so if that doesn't come in, at some point, people are going to pull out. And yeah, you're going to see the bubble. You're going to see implosion at the very least. But I think it would be a misunderstanding of the situation that we're facing to imagine that all of this is just hype. And that a lot of it is, for sure. But to imagine all of this is just hype, that this is just a bubble, and that bubble, once it bursts, goes away. Look at what happened with the .com bubble, right? All of that investment went forward to lay fiber optic cable everywhere and processing hubs everywhere. That bubble is what built the internet that the economy is now staked on. So a lot of those early companies like AOL and Yahoo went kaput, or at least shrank to, little gnome-like midget versions of their earlier selves. But the internet still happened. It changed the world. It changed everything about the way we do business, the way we communicate, the way we come to understand the world. And so the idea that AI, again, is just hype, or this is just a bubble, it's just going to go away, I think is quite absurd. It may not be the most extravagant, outlandish, futuristic vision, but it is absolutely going to have major impacts. And as I've argued basically from the beginning, I think that many or most of those impacts will be negative. And I think people need to at least prepare for a great transformation, if not for a great abomination of desolation.
Well, okay. You didn't know what I was going to ask you as my closing question, but you just set it up. That's pretty remarkable. Abomination of desolation. Because that's where I was going. How much of this is setting up, do you think, what the Bible talks about is the mark of the beast system, number one? And why is it that Peter Thiel seems to want to warn about Antichrist and Armageddon so much? We've played clips. I have one here real quick where he's talking about this. Why does he seem to want to warn about this? Watch this, please.
And
yep, that's right.
And then I think, again, to come back to the Soloviev-Benson plot hole, on its own, they both seem not that desirable. Why would we have a crazy surveillance state? Why would we, why would we do this? But if you're scared enough of these things, that's the weapon. And this is sort of where my speculative thesis is that if the Antichrist were to come to power, it would be by talking about Armageddon all the time. And
Peter Thiel.
Wow. Well, let me finish that one here.
The Antichrist would talk about Armageddon all the time. He'd scare people and then offer to save them.
Yes, it's the 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety. And so, which is nothing.
Okay, he's not even using the passage in context. But anyway, why is this guy always talking Antichrist? He's not the only one. Antichrist, Armageddon. Why does he do this?
Maybe he's spinning yarns. Maybe he really believes it. The first time I ever heard him use that, I guess you would call it a metaphor, was the Oxford Student Union. And he delivered an address, and he went into some of the details of why he believes this. It was largely in response to a transhumanist scholar at Oxford named Nick Bostrom. He wrote the very impactful book, Superintelligence. Nick Bostrom was so freaked out by the idea of someone creating a superintelligence that would come alive and kill everybody, and other devastating technological developments, that he believed that a kind of one world, or at least an American and European system of security would be required, just total surveillance of everyone all the time. It's where a lot of the talk of smart dust and things like that, he was talking about these sorts of things, and people around him talking about these sorts of things. I think they were called Patriot amulets or Patriot necklaces or something like that, Patriot talismans. Basically, anyone of any importance would have to wear this surveillance device everywhere. And of course, now Sam Altman and even Jeff Bezos are marketing these sorts of things, or trying to, but as a consumer product. And your smartwatch does exactly that. And your smartphone does exactly that. But anyway, the whole point of what Peter Thiel's talking about here is that the fear of technological devastation, if repeated endlessly, would justify a centralized and perhaps one world system of surveillance and control. And so Armageddon in Revelation, occurring after the appearance of the Antichrist, Thiel's reasoning is that you need to first worry about the Antichrist before you worry about Armageddon. And by Antichrist, basically, he is kind of a Catholic. He certainly invokes those symbols a lot in what he talks about. But just taken as a metaphor, or just a sort of allegory, this Antichrist figure would be a system that sought to, for instance, to control the development of AI so that it didn't get too powerful, or so that it didn't go out of control, that would require mass surveillance to detect any kind of threat. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about a tension between safety and security and innovation and possible total destruction. Is he just spinning yarns? Is he sincere? I don't know. I don't know the guy, but I do think that it's at least an analogy worth considering. But it's a real problem. What do you do? That's one of the big things. This AI action plan, the spirit of it. I don't know how much Thiel himself had, how much of a hand he had in crafting it. Probably some, but certainly the people who did craft it are in that sort of accelerationist sphere. And the way they're looking at it is that the controls and the safety regulations are the real problem, right? The nanny state is the real threat, and the real promise lies in development. And I get it. I get that perspective. On the other hand, you look at just even 5 to 10 years down the road, if current trends continue, add to that actual increases in capabilities and sophistication in these systems, I myself, and I think we agree on this, Brandon, I just don't see those upsides. I certainly don't see those upsides outweighing the downsides. There's no amount of video generation that could, it doesn't matter if they create the greatest film on earth purely by, invoking their AI demons. If you then also have the capability to create a deep fake of any single person and wreak havoc on their life, let alone on tens of thousands or millions of people, it's simply not worth it. Use a camera, hire actors, draw pictures. This is simply not worth it. And you go down the line, and with many, I would argue most of the use cases for these technologies simply don't justify the downsides, which are either very likely or maybe even inevitable.
I agree. Very, very well said. Take a look, folks. Here he is. Follow him on X, at Joe, BOTXYZ. Here is his book, Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. I highly recommend it. And then here is his, I don't know if this is like, it's his podcast is what it is.
It was my attempt at a podcast that I will eventually resurrect.
All right. Well, there are some archives there, I guess.
There's 10 great episodes if you want to listen.
Well, there you go.
I'm trying.
There you go.
I'm trying.
Well, there you go. It's a lot of work. I do 4 hours a day. A lot of work. I know. But again,
if I could, Brandon, I'm doing. There's a faith summit, an AI and faith summit that's coming up. I'll be speaking. It's online. You can sign up. It'll be right at the top of my social media. It's AI plus faith summit, and on Friday I'll be discussing the three big questions. Is AI the will of God? Is AI the work of the devil? Or is it merely the effort of man?
Wow. Who all's involved in that?
I don't really have a clear sense of the lineup, but it's certainly, I think many of your listeners will love a lot of it. I think they're much more on the pro AI angle. So if you want to hear somebody a little less doomy, than me or you, you'll probably get them.
And what's it called? AI and what?
AI plus Faith Summit.
I'm looking it up.
I'll probably be the doomiest of all.
Well, here we go. Yeah, the church must lead in the age of AI. That is really interesting.
And I think they may have. I'm not 100% sure that's them. I think that might actually be another one. I'm not 100% sure. It's unclear. Follow the link on my social media.
Here's another one: AI and Faith Summit coming up in August.
That's it. That's the one.
That is interesting. So, are they warning about it, or are they saying no? This is something we got to get excited about.
I think they want to get on board. So. It took me a while to explain. They kept asking me, like, what's the positive side? I'm like, you'll have plenty of people to talk about that, but you're not going to get a whole lot of that out of me.
Wow. Oh, wow. You're going to have leaders from the Episcopal Church. Remember, wasn't it the Episcopal pastor, the female pastor that went after Trump? The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, I think they've gone leftist some time ago. The Presbyterian Church USA, I think that used to be conservative. I don't know what they are anymore.
This group, there are a lot of Republicans that help organize it. So I'm guessing, again, I wish I had more information. All I can really tell you is what my role is there. But this organization is, I think, by and large, conservative Christians, but they're also techno-optimists. Maybe not after Friday.
Well, this is very interesting. I'm going to definitely be looking into this. Because I think it's interesting that they're holding such an event. Well, I'll be following that. Let me know more about that. And we look forward to getting you in studio and doing some long format interviews. And we could even open up the phone lines for people to call in and ask questions.
That'd be fantastic. And you could reach out and shake me if I keep going on too long. Like, hey, calm down.
Hey, it works for us. You know what? I love a guest that cranks out the information. It makes for a better program than having to draw it out of them. So you're a very good guest, and that's one reason I want to bring you in studio and go long format. Look forward to it. Hey, thanks for making time for us.
Right on, brother, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to it. I'll be down in Memphis ASAP.
Let us know. Let's get it on the calendar. Let's text. Thank you, Joe.
All right, thanks a lot.
My fellow Tennessean there, folks. I just found out yesterday he's living in Tennessee now. There you go. I don't know why you guys aren't living in Tennessee. It's a great state. I love Tennessee. All right, Diego, follow him on X. It's at Joe, BOTXYZ. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Did you know that we have more than one channel? Not just Worldview Tube, our 24/7 stream and on demand, but did you know we have a home and health channel, a Bible prophecy channel, a Bible teaching channel, and a history channel? Yep. All you got to do is go to worldviewtube.com. Take a look at this, worldviewtube.com. Go to TV. And hover your cursor over TV or click it, and then you'll see our Bible channel, 24-hour-a-day Bible teaching, our Bible prophecy channel, our history channel, and our home and health channel. They're all free of charge, folks. Brought to you as a ministry and part of our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. So all you got to do is go to worldviewtube.com/prophecy for the prophecy channel, worldviewtube.com/Bible for the Bible channel, worldviewtube.com/health for the health channel. That's all you got to do. History, Bible prophecy. Folks, we got a lot, and you're helping us push it out. worldviewfoundation.com.
Nature has a rhythm, a quiet strength, a way of restoring, protecting, and renewing us. Wellness isn't just about how you feel today. It's the quiet choices you make for tomorrow. At myvitamin.com/worldview, we've made daily self-care simple. Quality vitamins, daily supplements, and targeted nutrition. myvitamin.com/worldview makes it easy. Pure ingredients thoughtfully combined, tailored for your body. Formulated by a doctor who has over 25 years of medical practice experience and is a certified functional medicine provider. Visit myvitamin.com/worldview today and take the next step towards strength, balance, and resilience. Discover the wide range of med packs made for you and your loved ones. What you nurture today becomes the strength you walk in tomorrow.
Join me now is one of our national security correspondents, David Pine of dpine.substack.com. David, welcome back. Been a while. In fact, someone said to me, we haven't heard from David Pine in a while. I said, well, he's coming on tonight, and here you are. Welcome back.
Hey, Brownie, great to be with you.
A lot to talk about. Let's go to this first clip. President Trump, I want you to respond to this clip. Here we go.
You know, a big part of the problem was Russia for many, many years, long before Putin said you could never have NATO involved with Ukraine. Now, they've said that. That's been like written in stone. And somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that. But there were a lot of mistakes made in that negotiation. And when I heard the way that Biden was negotiating, I said, you're going to end up in a war. And it turned out to be a very bad war. And it could escalate. That war could escalate to be much worse than it is right now.
They can never join NATO.
Well, my view is that it was always understood. In fact, I believe that they had a deal, and then Biden broke it. They had a deal which would have been a satisfactory deal to Ukraine and everybody else, but that Biden said, no, you have to be able to join NATO.
Now, that's an important clip, because is that fact being talked about now with this restriction, and President Trump's now moving up? I guess he's shortening the window from a 50 days to much closer, or he's going to put, I guess, really tough tariffs or sanctions or whatever on Russia. Is this being taken into consideration still? Hey, we understand Russia doesn't want NATO bringing in Ukraine. They don't want these NATO weapons on their border. Is that been completely forgotten about?
He has these great instincts. He's a true patriot. He wants to do the right thing, but he continues to be manipulated into doing things, the Biden way, the neoconservative way, and that includes, this massive secondary package against Russia, against Russia's primary trade. Really, 85% of the world's countries that trade with Russia are the ones that would be affected by this initial 100% tariff that he's proposing in about 10 days. And, it's really a road to nowhere. He's just repeating the same old tired mistakes of Joe Biden. We already have 24,000 sanctions against Russia. It's done nothing. Their economy is on fire. It's, yes, there's inflation, but there's also 4% growth, greater growth rate, higher growth rate than any EU nation or the United States by far. Their military is expanding massively. Their military industrial capabilities are expanding massively. They already had, 7+ times more nukes than we do. But he's just really, refused to negotiate with Russia. He's refused to negotiate any peace terms with the Russian Federation. He's refused to meet with Putin, even though he said 2 months ago that the only way this war will end is if he meets directly with Putin. Why is he refusing to meet with Russian President Putin?
Yeah, and why isn't he?
Well, I think the neocons, his deep state advisors, Rubio, Ratcliffe, and others, Kellogg, are telling him that, that would just, for him to meet with Putin during, while Russian troops are in Ukraine would not be becoming a U.S. president, I guess. I mean, that's not the way Reagan would do it. Reagan would certainly meet with Gorbachev to resolve things, and he successfully ended the Cold War. If we had the same mentality, we can't meet with the Russians. The Cold War would never have ended, and the Soviet Union would still exist, and Soviet troops would still be in Germany. So it's just a really crazy mentality. It's it's not peace through strength; it's war through weakness. We continue to disarm the U.S. military in the Trump administration. Trump's going to give another $10 billion worth of aid. Of arms, he's selling it kind of third party. He's selling them to our NATO partners, and then our NATO partners are going to transfer those weapons to Ukraine. But it's really the same old story. He's just repeating the same mistakes that Joe Biden did, and Joe Biden, of course, set the world on fire. So, we're getting closer to World War III, as Dr. Peter Price stated a few years ago. This is we're playing with nuclear fire by waging this unnecessary proxy war against Russia and Ukraine in an East End.
And I don't know, I had on Ed Dowd last night, and he thinks we're headed toward World War III if things don't quickly change. Let me share with you what, and he cited, before I could even ask about him, he cited Martin Armstrong, the economist. He cited him. I was going to ask him about it, but he cited him before I even could. And his warning. Listen to this, please. Whoop, why is it not playing? Here we go. Right now. Here we go.
You got war coming. Every European government is planning for war. You had Merz come out and say, there's, diplomacy's off the table. Forget that. I spoke to, in 3 different countries in Europe, I asked, can you please name one European leader that has attempted any diplomatic communications with Putin? No names. Nobody has. The only one that even bothered to call him was Trump. That was it. And Europe was all upset about that.
Thoughts on that, please, Patrick? No, not Patrick. David Pine. Sorry, David.
Yeah, no problem. I think that, yes, President Trump has done a great job calling Putin. I think it's been 5 times. They've had good conversations, very, very pleasant. But the problem is Putin keeps telling Trump what his conditions for peace are, and Trump's he just ignores him, which is, it's fine. But he I guess now at least he's stated that he's not wanting to negotiate peace with Russia at all. He said he doesn't want to talk to Putin. Negotiations with Russia are off. It never really got started, unfortunately, because he refused to negotiate any of the terms. We had a 22-point Kellogg peace plan that was presented to the Russians in early May of this year. And once Russia rejected it, Trump just, decided to give up on the process without even trying. There was just simply no negotiations, just an ultimatum. And the sad part is, it's Zelensky that's the real problem here. And Zelensky, or rather Trump, has been enabling Zelensky by continuing to fund this war through arms sales and give essentially a blank check of U.S. support to Ukraine, including long-range missiles, potentially including JASSMs and Tomahawk missiles that have a range of 1,500 miles, 1,550 miles, actually. And needless to say, if the Ukrainians start targeting, Moscow with Tomahawks, it's a very likely chance we could see a nuclear war with Russia.
Well, that's exactly what, again, Martin put out the other day. Here is what Martin Armstrong has said. I'm disappointed with Trump. It seems the neocons have convinced him of war. This confirms what Socrates has been forecasting, inevitable war starting 2026. I think that's his computer system, Socrates. What do you make of this, David?
Well, nothing's inevitable. Trump could return to the America First conservative fold tomorrow. He could fire all his neocon advisors, and he could do exactly what he said. He could end the war in Ukraine in a week and force Israel out of Gaza to accept a deal which precludes Hamas from ever returning to power. He was able to negotiate peace in Gaza the day before he was inaugurated. He threw that out the window a couple months later when Israel said they wanted to bomb and reinvade Gaza. But as far as the war in Ukraine, I provided several peace proposals, including one the day after he was inaugurated, in which I outlined clearly the steps that he could take to end the war in less than a week, just a matter of days, not months. And he's just following the wrong advice of his neocon deep state advisors, and kind of ignoring Vice President Vance and DNI, Tulsi Gabbard and others, and even Steve Witkoff. Steve Witkoff said, let's take the Istanbul Agreement, as Ukraine's terms that Russia agreed to in the Istanbul Agreement. We'll take that as make that the current peace agreement, and we'll add kind of a ceasefire along the line of control. And Russia doesn't like that, but neither does Ukraine. But it would be a great compromise. And at least the Financial Times reported that Russia might be willing to consider that. And I really think that they would. So that's a pretty simple path to peace. And I think President Trump is just behaving like Biden. He just kind of behaves like the U.S. is the sole superpower of the world. In fact, the DoD spokesman, actually Department of State spokesman, Tammy Bruce just said today that basically, we're the power, and we get to dictate terms, and other countries have to follow it. And
Wow.
when you're dealing with other nuclear superpowers, that's not a recipe for success. There's no amount of threats. There's no amount of arms we can give Ukraine, threats against Russia that will cause Putin to back down from his minimal terms.
Well, that's what I got in my Worldview report tonight, a closing commentary. You're dealing with Russia. You're dealing with Putin, a superpower. Hypersonic missiles that have pinpoint accuracy. They can have multiple warheads and can go stealth. Can reach Europe in minutes. I don't understand why we're bossing Putin around.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make a good PR move, particularly for the midterms coming up, don't you think a joint meeting of Putin and Trump would be, President Trump likes television and to orchestrate things for television. Wouldn't, at the height of this tension right now, be the perfect time to see them meeting in, I don't know, where they want to meet, Switzerland, wherever they normally hold these things, some neutral place? Why would President Trump not call for that? So we can at least see him shaking Putin's hand, having some conversations before they go back to a room, and then come back out and say, we've made progress, we've not made progress, but we're going to keep talking. But at this point, why would you not be trying to put the world at ease and try to work this out with face-to-face meetings? Things always go better face-to-face when tensions are this high, don't you think?
Absolutely right. President Nixon, I think, said it best, that we needed to maintain good relations with both Russia and China. It's our adversaries that we need good relations with the most, because that's where we get security. If we're constantly confronting our nuclear adversaries and trying to push them to a Cuban Missile Crisis, then the chances of the incineration of the United States become quite higher. And Russia has the ability to super EMP the U.S. and NATO with a couple warheads in a matter of minutes. So we could see all of Western civilization destroyed in 1 billion dead within a year, potentially, if this goes south. So the stakes couldn't be any higher. And the irony is, Putin's always wanted to be our friend. He's wanted to be our strategic partner from the beginning. He came to power as a pro-Western leader, along the lines of Yeltsin. Yes, he was a former KGB, FSB director, KGB lieutenant colonel, but he was quite sincere in wanting to integrate Russia with, in terms of the economic and security infrastructure of the West. And all of his pleas to do so were essentially rejected. His repeated statements from 2007 on to try to resolve the NATO and Ukraine crisis diplomatically were all rejected as well. And President Trump, I think there were some good points in the Kellogg peace plan, but obviously it only went halfway to what the Russians were demanding. And if Trump wanted to meet with Putin and said, we accept your terms, except for you don't get a single inch of additional Ukrainian territory, and maybe even withdraw from, regions that are outside of Russia's demands. I think Putin could live with that, and it would be a great triumph. And he could say, I forced Putin to back down on his demands for more territory.
Look at this headline. Plan on it. Martin Armstrong sees a 100% chance of nuclear war. Now, he's saying 2026. What are you doing? And what do you recommend people do? How should people be preparing right now?
Well, we talked about this. The number one thing to do is spiritual preparation to, turn back to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and get our lives in order, get our families to repent as well. I need to repent. Everyone needs to repent. And that's probably the most important thing, the best life insurance for our safety and security, but also physical preparations, food storage, your business, a company as well, sells, food storage, medical supplies, ammo. Obviously we need that, but everything that we could be without in a grid down civilization ending scenario is what we need to prepare for. And I just don't think a lot of people see it. When Trump was elected president, I thought, wow, this is our second chance. God's given us a second chance to avoid World War III, and unfortunately that hasn't panned out. It looked pretty good the first 3 months or so of the administration. I can't underscore enough the need to have solar power and food storage and water supplies and all the things that we need to sustain life through a civilization-ending scenario.
Yeah. Okay. When I come back, I want to talk about this headline real quick. EU and U.S. agree trade deal with 15% tariffs for European exports to America. I want your analysis, David. Some are saying that America's getting everything. This is a one-sided deal. That's what some are saying. My question is why? And does it have something to do with what we're now doing with NATO? You do this with NATO, President Trump, and we'll agree to this with tariffs. I want to ask that, is this a piece of the deal? And most Americans are not understanding that there's multiple parts of this deal. And maybe it's not such a good deal after all for us. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Belly Grace Elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
All right, welcome back. David, I know you've got to go. You got another appointment, but I want you to respond to this. Some are saying this trade deal gives America everything, Europe not very much. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe this is a piece of the puzzle, the deal making. We're going to give America a bunch of weaponry to NATO. NATO can then turn around and hand it off to Zelensky. Trump is going to agree to throw in with them. We're headed toward war. But part of the deal is you got to pay us. And this is part of the payment. I'm just guessing. I mean, I'm looking at this and figuring this has got to be what this is partly about. Because from what I'm reading, this is like a deal that's really, really good for us, but not so much for Europe. Are you picking up on that same thing?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. 15% tariffs on all EU goods, 0% tariffs on US goods on their end. So it does seem kind of like a quid pro quo where, we agree to sell them the weapons they want to send to Ukraine to keep fighting Russia and for, I guess, indefinitely. And we get we get this deal. I mean, I don't think it's It is a good deal. It's absolutely a good deal for us, a bad deal for them. But I don't think we really get a huge amount out of it.
Well, particularly if it sets us on a course to World War III. If it sets us on a course to World War III, it's definitely not a good deal.
Yeah, we get nothing in the end. Our civilization, our country is destroyed if that's the way it pans out.
Or at least greatly damaged, even if it was a cyber attack that took us down for a few weeks. Who knows what, right? I agree. Man, wow. dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com. David, as always, thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Brad. It's always a pleasure.
You too, my friend. David Pyne checking in. And folks, I need you to go over to worldviewstore.com for two reasons. First of all, you can get all kinds of survival gear there that David was actually just talking about. Tons of stuff there. The food, the gear, medical kits, all kinds of stuff. But you can also find out and get tickets for our upcoming fall conference, our Worldview Weekend, our 22nd annual. This is our 22nd annual National Worldview Weekend. We've been holding Worldview Weekend since February of '93. This is our 22nd annual national conference in beautiful Collierville, Tennessee. Logan, can you show them some of that beautiful footage of Collierville? You have some of that? We were rated like the town square, #1 town square in America a couple years ago. It's a beautiful town outside of Memphis, 30 minutes outside of Memphis. You can drive in, the hotels, everything is right there. Gordon Chang will be speaking. I'll be speaking. Dr. Andy Woods, Hedia, Chris Martinson, Mark Mitchell, Alex Newman, Dr. Lana, Sidney Powell. There's only 350 seats. The theater belongs to our town. We're renting it from the town of Collierville. It's a beautiful theater, but only 350 seats. So this is going to give you guys a great opportunity to walk right up and speak to the speakers. And of course, now we have our concert banquet or our music banquet and keynote speech by Hedia on that Thursday night. We'll be bringing my grand piano, my piano player. I think we're adding in a few strings this year, some violins maybe, and we'll see cello. We'll see what else. A little bit of music, and then a keynote presentation by Hedia. Now that's Thursday night. That's an optional event Thursday night. There's no profit margin mixed in there. That's just the cost of the event because it's a beautiful ballroom, but the food is amazing. One of our favorite restaurants, folks, here in the Mid-South. So I hope you can join us for Thursday night. But if not, you can join us for Friday night and Saturday. All the details, hotels to stay at here in our very safe middle upper class community of Collierville, Tennessee. Full details, worldviewstore.com. Look at that beautiful band shell. That's on our town square, which there was a major battle, Civil War battle, fought on the square. The Battle of Collierville during the Civil War. You should visit it while you're here. Looks like Mayberry. See? Beautiful. Great community. Worldviewstore.com for full details. All right, before we go, I dealt with this earlier on television, but I want to remind everybody, if you didn't see that, there are a lot of lies going on around out there about Israel starving children. I'm not seeing any proof of it. What I am seeing is manufactured pictures from wars gone by, or little kids that look like they're in bad shape. One of them particularly looks malnourished. He has a serious health condition. And by the way, someone made a good point yesterday. They show these kids being held by their parents, and the kids look like they're starving, but the parents look like they're fat. Something doesn't add up. Why is nobody talking about the starving hostages? The hostages Hamas has that are being tortured, many of them raped, and are starving to death, according to numerous reports and the witnesses and those who've come out of what was happening to them. We all want to talk about Gaza, Gaza, Gaza. Why not who's perpetrated this problem? Hamas. Here is Hamas going after a convoy. There's a lot of videos like this online. Look at this. Hey, where's the media? Where's the media on the food being stolen. Yep. There's a lot of this out there if people want to find it. Right? Palestinian kids throwing rocks on humanitarian aid trucks hijacked by armed Hamas terrorists. There is hunger in Gaza because Hamas is stealing humanitarian aid, hoarding it and selling it above market prices to finance their terror machine. They also create the hunger because it benefits their propaganda strategies. So be careful, folks. Dangerous world out there. Lots of media not wanting to show you what we will. That's why we're rising in popularity. You know that? Here is a massive explosion. This is a fuel pellet facility destroyed. I think this was in Nebraska. Take a look at this footage. This is pretty incredible. I don't know what that is. I don't know why, but I'd like to find out. I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I am going to say, do you guys not find it interesting over the last 4 or 5 years how much of our critical infrastructure keeps getting damaged or blown up? Is this gray terror? Question mark. Not making statements. Is this, as we head toward what Martin Armstrong says looks like 100% world war, is this gray terror? This is what you do, what countries do. They send in people to disrupt critical infrastructure. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Maybe it was just dust that built up that ignited. I have no idea. But I just find it interesting. This kind of stuff seems to be so prolific the last few years. Here we're being told this is a state senator out of Michigan. Listen to what this state senator has to say. Here we go.
The way it is written is applying to all levels of law enforcement. They're operating in the state of Michigan, the sovereign state of Michigan. And the bottom line is that the people of Michigan, we do not want or need secret police, masked, unidentified people snatching our neighbors off the street, period. What
are the enforcement mechanisms in this bill? Like if federal law enforcement comes into Michigan and breaks Michigan law, who would prosecute that? What would the penalties be?
So the laws that are broken in Michigan, we would enforce with our law enforcement, just like any other.
So what are they wanting? Apparently they don't want any of the ICE people wearing masks when they come in there. They don't want them wearing masks. I don't know why they wear masks. I guess they're afraid of reprisals. But I do find it interesting whether it's the people in Michigan, the libs in Michigan, they basically destroyed that state, or Letitia James in New York. They all want these illegal immigrants just to be able to get away with it and then get paid, to stay on the SNAP program and get paid. Your tax dollars going to the government to give to people that broke the law and are here so you can feed them. And you're struggling to feed your family, some of you. These lawmakers, it's really a shame. But liberalism, as one guy said, is a mental disorder. All right. Don't forget about our national conference coming up, October 3rd and 4th. October 3rd and 4th, that's a Friday night and a Saturday. 350 seats available in this beautiful auditorium here in the Mid-South, Collierville, Tennessee. Love to have you be a part of it, okay? Full details, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. The optional music and keynote address banquet. I'll do a little music with my piano player and our grand piano, and then a keynote address by Hedia. Beautiful restaurant ballroom. The food's amazing. One of our favorite restaurants here in the Mid-South. That's Thursday night. That's optional. All the details at worldviewstore.com. What a lineup. All right, roll the music. Let's call it a night. Hey, don't forget, we need your support. Worldviewfoundation.com is one of the most powerful ways you can support us to keep pushing out free programming. And we don't just have this show. We have worldviewtube.com/prophecy. That's our prophecy channel. Worldviewtube.com/Bible. That's 24/7 Bible teaching. Worldviewtube.com/history. And worldviewtube.com/health. All three brought to you in part by our foundation. You help make it possible. May God save America. Take care.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
Faith, spiritual